You are watching Dioganes and Donda. The history of draft dodging in America.
The draft has always been a class-sorting mechanism. Rich kids get doctors willing to write letters about bone spurs. Poor kids get a bus ticket to basic training. Trump got 5 deferments. Cheney got 5 deferments. Clinton maneuvered through ROTC promises he never kept. And Ted Nugent, the guy who built a career on aggressive American machismo, admitted he deliberately made himself unfit for service. While Muhammad Ali lost his title, his freedom, and his livelihood because he refused on principle and named exactly who the enemy was.
The Ali contrast is where the whole mythology collapses. He said, "No Viet Cong ever called me nigger," gave up everything, did it in public, and faced real consequences. Nugent shit his pants and called it patriotism for 50 years. One of those is a moral position, the other is cowardice dressed in a flag. The class architecture is visible in the Civil War substitute system. You could literally pay $300 to send a poor man to die in your place, which in 1863 money was working-class annual wages, and that draft riot in New York killed over 100 people because the poor figured out immediately what the system was. The bone spur letter, the ROTC deferment, the Conscientious Objector claim, these are all just updated versions of the $300 substitute. The only difference is who has access to which mechanism.
The $300 substitute system didn't disappear, it just got laundered through medical bureaucracy and legal complexity, which requires money to navigate. A poor kid in 2025 facing a draft doesn't have a doctor on retainer willing to find a creative diagnosis, doesn't have a lawyer who knows how to build a conscientious objector case with the right documentation, doesn't have parents with connections to a National Guard unit that conveniently never deploys. And now the Army is dropping marijuana conviction waivers and raising the enlistment age to 42. That's not liberalization, that's desperation. They're widening the net because voluntary recruitment is collapsing while the Iran escalation demands more bodies. And the bodies they're pulling in are always the same bodies, the ones without the $300.
The marijuana waiver move is the tell. They didn't decriminalize anything. Weed is still Schedule 1, still federally illegal. They just decided that a prior possession charge is no longer disqualifying because they need warm bodies more than they need clean records. Raising the enlistment ceiling to 42 is the same signal. That's not a policy built on military effectiveness. A 42-year-old recruit is not the Pentagon's first choice. That's a policy built on shortage. The geographic data on enlistment makes the class argument mathematically. Rural counties, post-industrial Midwest, Appalachia, South Texas, these are the zip codes that produce soldiers, and they correlate almost perfectly with economic precarity and limited exit options. The draft has always been a poverty tax with a flag on it.
The military's own recruitment data calls it the economic draft internally. They know exactly which zip codes they're fishing in. They locate recruiting offices in strip malls in Appalachia, not in the suburbs of Connecticut. And the pitch they're making isn't patriotism, it's healthcare, it's job training, it's a way out of a county with 40% youth unemployment. When voluntary recruitment fails and they start moving toward conscription, watch which congressional districts suddenly develop passionate anti-draft sentiment. It'll be the same districts that have been sending other people's children for 2 centuries. Because the moment the draft threatens to reach into those zip codes, the politics shift instantly.
The Selective Service system has never been disbanded. Every male citizen still registers at 18. The infrastructure is maintained, and that's not bureaucratic inertia, that's a kept option. Watch the congressional voting pattern when conscription legislation surfaces. the loudest hawks on Iran who've never worn a uniform and whose children are currently in law school will suddenly discover constitutional concerns about compulsory service. The FARA angle nobody's discussing is which defense contractors are lobbying for the Iran escalation while simultaneously lobbying against any draft mechanism that would pull from their donor class's children. Raytheon doesn't care who dies, but the board members' kids go to Georgetown, not to Fallujah.
The Selective Service registration requirement never went away because the option to conscript never went away, it's a kept gun, and the decision about when to fire it is entirely a political calculation about whose sons are in the chamber. The FARA filings on defense contractor lobbying during this Iran escalation are public record, and nobody in mainstream media is running the straight line from Raytheon's PAC contributions to the congressional hawks pushing for military action. Because that's the story that connects the financial incentive to the body count in a way that's too clean to dismiss as conspiracy theory, it's just accounting.
The FARA filings and the PAC data are sitting in public databases that any journalist with a Pacer account and an afternoon can pull. Open Secrets has the contribution flows, the lobbying disclosure database has the registered agents, and what you find when you run the names is the same architecture every time. Defense contractor PAC to incumbent Hawks campaign, Hawk votes for authorization, contractor books the revenue, and the cost of that revenue is measured in enlistment bonuses targeting zip codes with median household incomes under $40,000. The conspiracy theory shield is specifically useful here because the actual conspiracy is just incorporation documents and FEC filings. It's not hidden, it's just tedious, and Tedium is the best cover a financial pipeline can have.
Tedium is a feature, not a bug. The complexity of tracking a Raytheon subsidiary's PAC contribution through 3 levels of incorporation to a Senate Armed Services Committee member's leadership PAC is exactly what makes it functionally invisible despite being entirely public. The people who benefit from that pipeline have correctly calculated that the barrier isn't secrecy, it's attention span and access to legal databases, and the media organizations that could do the work are either owned by the same financial networks, dependent on defense contractor advertising, or staffed by people who went to the same schools as the people they'd be investigating.
The revolving door data at the Pentagon makes the network explicit. The Project on Government Oversight tracks it, and what you see is senior defense officials leaving DoD and landing at Raytheon, Lockheed, General Dynamics within the mandatory cooling-off period's legal minimum, sometimes the same week it expires, and then those same people are registered lobbyists back in the building they just left, talking to people they hired. The media ownership layer completes the circuit. 6 conglomerates own the outlets. Those conglomerates have defense contractor equity positions in their investment portfolios, and the editorial decision about whether to run a 3-part series connecting PAC flows to draft policy to body counts in Appalachian counties is being made by people whose financial interests are structurally aligned with not running it.